The Collect for St. James the Apostle. God, grant, O merciful God, that as thine holy apostle St. James, leaving his father and all that he had, without delay, was obedient unto the calling of thy Son Jesus Christ, and followed him, so we, forsaking all worldly and carnal affections, may be evermore ready to follow thy holy commandments. We turn to verse 3 of hymn 567. Be thou our great deliverer still, thou Lord of life and death. Restore and quicken, soothe and bless with thine almighty breath. Hands that work, eyes that see, wisdom's heavenly lore. The whole and sick, and weak and strong, may praise thee evermore. We resume our study with Professor W.H. Griffith Thomas on Article 2 of the Word of God. And if nothing else, the Church of England was clearly Trinitarian, clearly Orthodox on Christology. And if the articles do nothing else, then give us that vision. Then, and other Anglicans join in with that, then it would be a renaissance of faith. Again, this is a question for the intellectuals and the leaders and heads of principals of colleges at Oxford and Cambridge, all of them, and all the bishops in the bench. Picking up with Prof. Thomas on page 50. There are three phrases that need to be studied. Made sin for us, for 2 Corinthians 5:21. He died for the just, the just for the unjust, 1 Peter 3:18. And made a curse for us, Galatians 3:13. The true and complete meaning of these words must be insisted upon. See, there are four prepositions which require attention. Peri, with reference to, huper, on behalf of, dia, on account of, anti, instead of. Matthew 20:28, 1 Timothy 2:6, with a footnote, number 2. Foot number 1 on huper. Sometimes huper has a clear substitutionary meaning. John 11:50. Number 2, there are two other words not found in the New Testament which are useful for expressing aspects of the atonement. Expiation, canceling by sacrifice and satisfaction, restitution of a broken law. And footnote 3. Stands to reason that to describe the ceremonialism of Judaism, for example, apart from the cardinal doctrines of Christianity, is like writing a history of the acorn and saying nothing about the oak tree from which it grows. Very nice. It stands to reason that the theologian who defines Christian doctrine of the atonement without reference to the expiatory features of Mosaicism might as wisely undertake a philosophic biography and ignore the entire story of childhood and early display of hereditary tendency. The book is Cave, the Scriptural Doctrine of Sacrifice, in the preface. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful point. Just stop right there and revel for the rest of the day in connecting atonement, propitiation, satisfaction, substitutionary atonement, and just see it in the book of Leviticus again and again and again and then again. This is just glorious. Number 3, not least of all, consideration must be given to the biblical doctrine of sin, its nature and effects, the divine attitudes toward it. A, the words used for sin are important, especially hamartia, for failure or coming short, parabasis, for transgression, and paraptoma, for falling aside. B, the consequences of sin are also clearly taught. They seem to be mainly two: a debt, objective, which requires payment, and subjective, which requires a cure. The term wrath of God, orgeitheu, must have some meaning, and it seems best to interpret it of God's judicial displeasure against sin. Quote, the abominable thing that I hate, Jeremiah 44, verse 8. And then D, the meaning of forgiveness, aphesis, the taking away of sin. This section is worth the price of the book. This is atonement religion. It cannot be said too often. The Old Testament anticipation. The New Testament points back to the Old. The sacrificial terms of the former find illumination in the ritual of the Old Testament. It must never be forgotten that nearly all the great terms of the New Testament are stated without explanation, and apart from the Old Testament through the Septuagint, they would be unintelligible. The Old Testament sacrifices call for interpretation. For whatever we hold of the Old Testament, they must have had some spiritual meaning. As we contemplate the sacrifices of Genesis, the sacrifice of the Passover, the various Levitical offerings, they are evidently intended to embody some spiritual reality and set forth some profound truths. There are several words and phrases in the Old Testament connected with the Old Testament, especially the word kapfar, for the covering, the Day of Atonement. Oh, is he going to stop there? Oh, please. Oh, that's just begging to be examined in full. Maybe one day we'll do. In fact, that might be worth looking at now. Taking a little detour. So let me check and see if I got a book on it. I don't like to interrupt as I'm doing now, but we've got to do a detour on atonement and atone. Because it's evident that Prof. Griffith Thomas is going to just bounce off that far too quickly. Here we got several pages that are going to be worth exploring. The word atone is done by Jeff Bromley, the ever loyal, academic, scholarly, quiet Church of England man. Probably identified with, they dub him as an evangelical Anglican, which is kind of not oxymoronic, form of stuttering. To say Anglican to be a prayer book man is to be evangelical in the New Testament sense of it. Now, it's acquired other meanings that aren't biblical, but if we're going to be canonical people of the canon, the Old Testament, canon of the New Testament, we're evangelicals. We're calling people from death to life. Anyways, I'm glad we're going to take this little detour. 3-4 videos on the atonement. The word atone, kapfar in Hebrew, kippurim, covering. The AV has reconcile, reconciliation, purge, and some editions, expiate, expiation, but Day of Atonement, secure pardon, ransom, wipe out, master, To atone was to bring together in mutual agreement, with the added idea and theology of reconciliation through the very vicarious suffering of one on behalf of another. The English word atonement traces its origin to the 16th century. The New Oxford Dictionary indicates that in the first instance it appeared as two separate words, at and one-ment. This is the English use of the term of Acts 7:26, eis erein, unto peace. Two parties come to peace. And hence, therefore, being justified by faith, we have peace with God. Something that the Holy Living crowd in the 17th century divines, the Church of England, seem to have lost. Something that Rome would like to have but doesn't. I think they would like it, but anyways, it soon became a quasi-theological term. Sir Thomas More applied it in 1513. William Tyndale used it to translate katallage in 2 Corinthians 5:18. In the Bible, the idea of atonement occurs much more widely than the actual use of kapar or katallage would seem to indicate when he's going to look at number one, atonement in the Bible, interpreting the atonement, 3, history of the doctrine, and he'll be looking at the fathers, the schoolmen, the reformers, the liberals, and conservative theologians. Atonement in the Bible. The doctrine of the atonement holds a central place in biblical doctrine. Both the Old and New Testament continually deal with the subject, for the concept of the covenants or testaments is fundamentally bound up with the idea of atonement for sin. Moreover, the origin of the atonement is always referred back to the Bible, to the eternal plan, purpose, and grace of God. 2 Timothy 1:9, Ephesians 1:4, John 16, and following. Thus it appears as a basic idea and altogether indispensable theme of Christianity. As a presupposition to the doctrine of atonement, however, one must consider the fall of man. If the doctrine of man, John 1f, John 1 and following, teaches that God created all things perfect according to his sovereign plan and purpose. At the summit of his creation, he placed man who possessed a free will. At the same time, God subjected man to a test so that he could attain to a knowledge of good and evil by facing temptation, which he might overcome, to which he might succumb by the use of his will. Man failed this test, falling into sin by his denial of the sovereignty of God and his assertion of independence from the Creator, Genesis 3:4 and following. This disobedience immediately brought man under the condemnation of God, who punished him with both physical and spiritual death. This punishment applied not merely to original offenders, but by virtue of the solidarity of the human race, to all those who physically descended from Adam. We're going to have to call it a little bit early here today. Got some issues in business with one of my grandchildren. Anyways, until next time, Godspeed.